Welcome to Tone Talk.
What up, y'all? This is Attorney Antonio Moore coming to you from Tone Talks to have a discussion today about Kamala and Trump and what we're seeing with the polls. I believe that they're showing us polls where they're nearly tied, but this race is not nearly tied. I don't know what they're going to do election day, but I will tell you, in my belief, this is a mismatch unlike anything seen in our lifetime politically. I don't believe Kamala was ready. I don't believe Kamala could ever be ready. I believe she lacks in a lot of areas to be a national level dynamic politician. And for each person, they can have their own view. I'm not even dealing with her background from Willie Brown to this husband that's sketchy, to the lack of children and the nuclear family that most major politicians have to, almost all have to have. I'm just dealing with, she can't answer questions well. And then she doesn't know facts. I mean, I just showed you, or I will show you, let me say, a clip during the CNN town hall where she doesn't understand that there's multiple people on the ballot.
And part of what we need to do is always prioritize what we need to do to strengthen our border. I will tell you I'm the only person in this race among the two choices. I will tell you I'm the only person in this race among the two choices. I will tell you I'm the only person in this race among the two choices that voters have. I've personally prosecuted transnational criminal organizations.
How do you not know that? There's just two people on the ballot, she says. I don't know what's going on with people. I just know what I'm seeing is a mass media that's trying to tell us a story about an election that none of it matches. We go all the way back. I told you guys from the beginning, Kamala Harris should not be running for president. Not just because of her background, but because she didn't go through a primary process and we didn't choose her. She actually failed in 2019. Nobody selected her. And then they took Biden, skipped the primaries, and then essentially replaced Biden while leaving him president. See, if there was an accident, if there was some kind of injury where he was incapable, then you can do this. You can't take him out and then replace him with her, and he stays president, which shows he has all his facilities. I don't know how this all happened. I just know there's no precedent. I've shown an article where the closest thing we have is Lyndon Johnson, but then there was a whole primary season for his replacement. But now we're here, and we know the New York Times showed us she was the least likely among all the options to even do well against Trump, but they're trying to tell us that she's tied with Trump, and I'm not seeing it. I'm not seeing it from Black folk. I'm not seeing it from Middle Easterners. I'm not seeing it from white folk. I'm not seeing it from Latinos, but they're trying to tell us this, and I don't know. Maybe you believe it. I don't. We'll see election day, who's right, who's wrong. So many factors to discuss. You know, they're saying it's tied. If the 2024 presidential election were held today, it's according to the New York Times, Siena poll, who would you vote for if the candidates were Kamala Harris and Donald Trump? They're saying it's 48-48. But then there's other people who are doing projections and showing she might not get any of the swing states. She might not get Georgia, Michigan, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, Ohio. We know California, Oregon, Washington will all go to her. We know that. But they're saying that it might go 312, 226, which is a landslide in the modern era. I want to talk. Please support the channel. 310-388-3499. Let's get right into the discussion. Kamala Harris and Trump, why are they telling us it's a tight election when we know it's possibly already over? And it's not just us. It's a lot of people. But again, you have people trying to tell you that this is only two candidates on the ballot. But then when you get your ballot, and this is not my ballot here. This is someone's ballot that I found online. I didn't vote for Jill Stein. I voted write-in because we didn't have Cornell on our ballot in California. I wrote in for Cornell West. I voted down ballot prior. What you see is that there actually are multiple options. And again, this is not my ballot. This is someone else's. And it shows 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 options. Yet we have this.
Voters have. I've personally prosecuted transnational criminal organizations. Part of what we need to do is always prioritize what we need to do to strengthen our border. I will tell you I'm the only person in this race among the two choices. I will tell you I'm the only person in this race among the two choices. I will tell you I'm the only person in this race among the two choices.
So you have a woman who basically doesn't know there's more than two choices. I'm seeing a lot of people who are not well educated repeat that same sentiment. I'll get into California as an example of how it's ignorant to even say, well, there's only two viable options. Trump isn't viable in California. She's ahead 24 points. So if you're in California, the only option really is Kamala if you want to go down that ballot. But there's a purpose to voting third party. There's a purpose to voting down ballot. There's a purpose to voting for whoever you vote for outside of just the two major parties, because it begins to tell the parties that you're present and you are here and they need to recognize your vote. This is the problem with not having dynamic politicians, dynamic politics, and allowing people who are very limited in education to speak for us. They don't know. I saw one thing that showed there was an uptick in the amount of down ballot non-presidential ballots in 2020. I believe that was directly tied to ADOS, and they just didn't want to give us credit. Can we talk? Harris and Trump deadlocked to the end. Final times, Siena National Poll finds. Kamala Harris and Donald Trump are locked in a dead heat for the popular vote, 48% to 48%. Ms. Harris struggles for an edge over Trump with an electorate that seems impossibly and immovably divided. The result, coming less than 2 weeks before Election Day, and as millions of Americans have already voted, is not encouraging for Ms. Harris. In recent elections, Democrats have had an edge in the popular vote, even when they have lost the Electoral College and thus the White House. They have been looking to Ms. Harris to build a strong national lead. Can we talk? Let me turn this up a little bit. As a sign that she would do well in such critical swing states as Michigan, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin, Ms. Harris' position, if anything, may have declined among likely voters since the last time Siena poll taken in early October. At that time, she had a slight lead, 49 for her, 46 to Trump. The change is within the margin of error, but the Times national polling average has registered a tightening in polls over the past few weeks. So it's swinging Trump's way, and I believe even without swinging his way on the polls, Election Day, a lot of white folks is going to turn out that we not even counting. But then there's other people who have other polls that are doing the averages of all the polls, and then what they're saying is a bit different. Now, again, this is October 12th, so we're a few days away from when this was actually put up. But 2024 election map based on the latest polling averages. It had Trump 312, Harris 226. It had Michigan to Trump by 1.2, North Carolina to Trump by 1.1, Georgia to Trump up 1, Pennsylvania to Trump plus 1. She loses all the swing states. Again, that's where that map comes from. 310-388-3499 to give your opinion. I'm just trying to figure out, if this is the swing of the election, why are we seeing this everywhere? I believe by next week, you're going to see a lot of down ballot Democratic senators start pushing. And I saw someone actually talk about Trump in their ads, away from Kamala and away from the landslide that she might be facing, to try to keep their seats. I'm not saying it's going to be Mondale in 84. For those people that don't know, in 1984, an incumbent Reagan slaughtered Mondale, the Democrat, and essentially led to a whole shift in the Democratic Party where they went right and we got Clinton. Essentially, they leaned right because they saw what happened to Mondale in 84, and then they lost again, I believe, in 88, and then we don't get it back till 92, but we get a center-based party at that point. And what happened to Mondale is he didn't give up one state. I don't see that happening for Kamala. I see a map that looks more similar to this, where she, of course, she gets California, Oregon, Washington, New Mexico, Colorado. But I'm not saying she's going to lose all the swing states like this map, but we're not even talking about Florida. Think about it, or Texas. And Michigan, they had a whole thing with MSNBC where they had 7 Middle Easterners, and none of them was voting for Kamala. They didn't say they was voting for Trump, but Stein and all of that. We have a real issue here, and nobody's really talking about it. Somebody says she'll get Georgia. How are you? I'll talk. I have a post for Georgia as well. I believe the Atlanta Journal Constitution. Excuse me if I get it. They actually are saying different. I don't know. She's definitely not getting Florida. I'm just saying. Somebody said Kamala gonna win. G. All right. 310-388-3499. Support the channel. That's how I bring these shows. Patreon, Tone Talks, Cash App, Tone Talks. Do what you can, not what you can't. Oh, man. I did write in Cornell, C-O-R. I did. So nonetheless, Democrats fear race may be slipping away from Harris. This is the Hill. There's growing fear in Democratic circles that the presidential race could be slipping further away from Vice President Harris. To be sure, Democrats still think Harris can defeat former President Trump. The margins are so close in the 7 battleground states likely to decide the contest. But as I'll show in a second, there's a whole nother population of white folks that either might be telling the wrong thing to the poll and then shift their vote when they get in the ballot like they did in 2016, or in fact, they might just not do the polls. A shift toward either candidate or a mistake in the polling could be decisive. At the same time, Democrats are privately expressing worry that battleground polling appears to be moving in Trump's direction over the last 2 weeks. Cracks in the blue wall of Michigan, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin. And again, when we look at a map and we're talking about those states, what are we talking about? Michigan, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania. These states are imperative. And I believe Kamala has to get all 3. Trump don't need all 3. And Wisconsin is starting to show with Senate incumbents in both Pennsylvania and Wisconsin now in toss-up races, according to the Cook Political Report. The 3 northern states generally move in the same direction in the presidential race, but Harris has been losing ground to Trump in polls. This goes all the way back again to them giving us a candidate that was ill-qualified. They knew the New York Times did it. New York Times did a whole thing with a bunch of experts, and they said she's the least likely to beat Trump. Why did we have to go with the least likely person to beat Trump as liberal voters? And she's also, to me, all over the place in terms of policy. In Michigan, doubts among Arab American voters are worrying Democrats. None of this is making Democrats feel better about an election day that is now less than 2 weeks away. Caller, what's your name? Where are you calling from?
Hey, Cole. This is Marcus from the West Side.
What's the West Side? What state? What state are you at?
Michigan.
All right, cool. That's perfect. Give us your take. What are you feeling in Michigan?
I believe this is going to be the Bradley effect. You know what that is? Tom Bradley, when he tried to run for governor, and they said, "Yeah, you get all these votes," but when they went to their polls, they flipped on. I think it's going to be the same thing. It might not be quite Walter Mondale, but it's going to be pretty close. So she gave herself no service in these debates. They were trying to hide her for the longest, but she had to eventually talk and open her mouth. And when she did it, we'll find out what she's all about. And she's being dumped. So this is the end for her. And this is Senate. I know the Senate's going Republican, but it also might flip the House too. Oh boy, if that happens, get ready for what's coming.
All right, man. Let me keep going on the show. Thank you for your audition from Michigan. Oh man. I mean, again, she told us it's 2 options. She in the race. Listen to it for yourself.
And part of what we need to do is always prioritize what we need to do to strengthen our border. I will tell you I'm the only person in this race among the 2 choices. I will tell you I'm the only person in this race among the 2 choices. I will tell you I'm the only person in this race among the 2 choices that voters have. I personally.
So there's 6 choices. Again, this is in my ballot. Our ballot in California doesn't have Cornell. You have to write it in. But there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 choices on this ballot. And she said there are 2. I don't know. And then you can't say that there's only 2 likely, because in California, we're 24 points her. So they all aren't likely other than the Democratic choice. So, Kamala, voting ballots have more than 2 choices. I need you to see it. You got Harris holding a 24-point lead in California. So if your argument to me, and you're in California, is that only 2 of them have a chance, you might as well say that nobody should be on the ballot but Kamala in the California ballot. That don't make no sense. So Stein, Cornell, all of them have the same chance as Trump in California. We got a historical background on the black vote. This has been our party as we have built it, but we have asked nothing of the party and given so much to it. This party shifted right after the Mondale big loss, and Clinton came in and gave us saxophones while at the same time cutting welfare and locking up black men like we'd never seen before. Super predators is what they called us. You got black people 84, 90, 88, 95, 93%. Other groups at Latinos at 60 something, whites at 40 something, and we got to hear Kamala is out with Dick Cheney's daughter doing speeches. What? Can we talk? Caller, what's your name? Where you calling from?
What's going on, Carl? How you doing tonight?
I'm all right. I'm just going through this and trying to tell people about these polls because other people don't understand. Even if you're in California, you have the right to vote for a third party. You have the right not to vote for the president and vote down ballot. I just think you need to be informed about the realities of the services you need from local and state level politicians before you decide to go red. But I will say, when you vote these other ways, even though Kamala's going to take the state, it shows up when we go back and look at the data. Go ahead.
Yeah, man, I totally agree. It's just like you said earlier, it's just another sign of how crazed and confused our whole entire campaign is, from articulating policies to figuring out which direction to attack. Like they just bringing back the whole Trump is Hitler thing after almost 3 assassinations.
It's very dangerous. It's very
really
dangerous.
crazy time.
Yeah, a former president, and you're actually saying this, and you don't have any kind of like real anchoring, and you're saying it because you're throwing anything against the wall. You got her on the Charlemagne show. Charlemagne, again, I said it last show, he's a dropout. And he got 1 unit of U.S. history during his GED classes in South Carolina. Not the highest level. I just don't know how you guys even listen to him about politics. What expertise does he have? None. You call it elitist. I'm not going to no Charlemagne to fix my ankle, so why would I go to him for my politics? Let me say it again. If you're not going to go to Charlemagne for your heart surgery, why are you going to him for your politics? Talk about it. Go ahead, give me your last thoughts.
I think that just goes to how propaganda works and how the media is being complicit. Not only, I would say, even academia, which basically is based politics, not a science anymore. Like, it's not about based empirical evidence and then drawing like reasonable conclusions. It's just having an opinion, no matter how informed that opinion is. Just as long as it's like at least provocative, it should have some kind of like staying power. And I feel like that's just this kind of it's the same moment that we're living in, pretty much, with these celebrities and shock jock commentators speaking for us like they're like actual political scientists or even grassroots leaders.
Thank you, man. Thank you for your addition. The phone lines are filling up. 310-388-3499. I want to hear from you. Again, your vote matters. Even if you're in California, a state where, and many other states are similar to this, looking past the swing states, we're 24-point lead in California. So it feels like maybe I shouldn't vote. There are voting issues down ballot. In addition, even at the top of the ticket, you can make your voice heard through third parties, through abstaining from the president. They look at these data afterwards, and it matters. Don't let nobody tell you that there's only 2 selections on a ballot with 6 goddamn selections. It's just like, how are you here in America, where the polls of the Harris-Trump race could be off from the politics desk? So we got this thing. And we know in 2016, they told us Hillary was going to win by a lot more than this. It wasn't tight. Then when the polls came out, everybody looked like they was about to cry. You remember that night? We got this thing. And we know that going to sleep in 2020, it looked like Trump was going to win again. But what ended up happening is when we woke up, Biden had won. The polls were off in 2020. Will they be again in 2024? 4 years ago at this time, polling pointed to a relatively easy victory for Joe Biden. On this day in 2020, for example, he led Donald Trump by 7.9 percentage points nationally in the Real Clear Politics polling averages, and held advantages in all of the swing states where some surveys even showed double-digit advantage for Biden. Biden, of course, did go on to win the election, but by a much smaller popular vote margin, 4.5, and an exceedingly narrow one in the electoral college, where a total of about 43,000, understand that 300 million plus Americans, votes across 3 states separated him from a 269 tie that most likely would have led to a Trump victory in the House of Representatives. The race appeared far tighter this time, with Kamala Harris just 2 points ahead of Trump in our current national polling averages, and with the results in all 7 battleground states within 2 points. It ain't within 2 points. You got white folks that are in the bushes. You got white folks that's gonna come out. I don't think that people understand. It showed up in 2016. It showed up in 2020. It could be that the race is just as close as those numbers indicate, and that polling this year is more accurately capturing the state of play. But the possibility of another polling mishang is in the air. If there's a repeat of 2020 and 2016, and the full extent of Trump's support is again being missed, then he's headed for a decisive victory. And that's how we get this right here. Let me take another caller. Caller, what's your name? Where you calling from?
What's going on, Mr. Antonio? Christian from Fayetteville, North Carolina. How you doing, sir?
I'm all right. Hey, Christian, let me finish this article with you, and then you just give me your take on this. Again, the title of this article from NBC is "Where the Polls of the Harris-Trump Race Could Be Off," from the politics desk. We're picking up on the second part, why Trump's support was underestimated in the past is a matter of debate, but where it was missed is clear. States with large populations of white voters without 4-year college degrees. Polls overestimated Biden's 2020 election margins in battleground states. You look at it right here, final poll, actual. So in Arizona, they had final as Biden 2.6. The RCP had him 0.9, but he was actually only 0.3. In Georgia, they had Biden 1.2, the 538. RCP had him had Trump +1. Biden ended up being +0.2. You had North Carolina, where the 538 had Biden +1.8. RCP had Trump +0.2, but Trump ended up +1.3. Wisconsin, where the polls were off the most, has the highest concentration of white residents without college degrees of any battleground state. And let me say one last thing. They had Biden 8.4 at the 538 in Wisconsin in 2020, and Biden 6.7 up in RCP, but he ended up only being up 0.6. That is a very, very bad swing for that poll, for both polls. Go give me your take.
You're absolutely right. I think it goes to show that a lot of folks that they got with folks, because you mentioned even the statistic about a lot of folks, they either don't even graduate college, let alone even have any college education, period. I personally didn't get a degree, but I did spend some time in college for a couple years. And what I definitely can say is that even with that education, the biggest thing that helped was the education after getting out the institution, which is listening to shows like yours and just and educating yourself, not just for the sake of giving information, but also understanding what your priorities need to be. And I think a lot of people aren't seeing, and I think the Palestinian community is showing a pretty good example of this, as well as us as well. But the Palestinians are like, we don't care if we win. We know he's not getting our support. And we know we will get our support if they fulfill these agenda items. And the same thing with us. I'm realizing even here in North Carolina, and I can admit, I'm not proud of this. The first go around, the gentleman that is currently the Lieutenant Governor, Mark Robinson, I think when he ran for Lieutenant Governor, I voted for him. However, I learned a lot more these last 4 years and realized that there are some agenda points that might work for me because of my particular class or because of my particular job, that it might work out for me. But we need somebody to do this aggregation. We need somebody to do all the different agenda points that we need in order to get reparations. This dude says that he wants to get reparations back to slave owners. That's not the guy that you get influenced to do that. So I think a valuable lesson we're learning right now as a people, learn how to prioritize your needs regardless of the fear mongers you and plenty. Even to the point that you give a great example, write it in if you have to. But don't kowtow to what people are bullying you into doing and then giving them a pass to continue with the benign neglect.
CNN senior data reporter basically said this on air. At this particular hour, Donald Trump's going to put up the best performance with black voters since Nixon in 60. Among Hispanics, Donald Trump's going to put up the best performance for a Republican since 2004. We have this whole onslaught of a black red wave. And when I say a red wave, it's weird because there's one data point that's not being discussed at all, is the swing of black women that have gone red. I think they're anywhere from 10 to 14 points lower in support for Kamala than they were for Clinton. I posted that on my Twitter. You can go find that, the supporting documentation. You look at I think I was looking at NBC's polling, exit polling for Clinton. If and don't quote me, it's one of the major media outlets. It might be Washington Post. And then comparing it to the recent Pew Research data, and it swung black women from 93% support for Clinton to 79% support for Kamala. That is an absolute failure for her as a black female politician. There is no misogyny or being a black person that you can hang on because it's black women. Black men are down, I think, 7 points in support for her. You chose a candidate that, one, isn't ADOS, two, can't connect with nobody, and three, doesn't really understand policy. And so now what we have is a group of black men putting on all this red like this is a movie set, or like this is a gang culture, or like, and not telling me what Trump's agenda is at all. They're using the same methodology Kamala is using and saying he's just not Kamala. Well, I need to know who he is. And what I understand he is somebody that's going to help the rich folk. So I hope that if you vote this way, your baby mama, your grandma that's on the aid services, and uses the community service center, I hope when they close any of this stuff that you have the wealth to actually fill in the gaps. Now I like him. Some black voters in Georgia see Trump as a real option. Any last thing you want to say to the audience before I read this article?
Absolutely. I'll end with a quick story, and I'll encourage anybody that's a parent, especially during this time, to definitely do this with your kids. I'll never forget when Obama got elected. At that point, I was 8 years old. And I remember when it was announced that he won, I remember seeing my parents cry that night. But the very next morning, and I was a homeschool student, very next morning, the first thing my mother taught me was about the lesson of black faces and high spaces. And at the age that I could understand, broke down his agenda and said his agenda has nothing to do for us, and he's not going to do anything for us just because he's black. So I leave that with the fans. Hopefully you all do the same with your own, with your community. Tony, I appreciate the good work. Keep up the good fight, sir.
Thank you. Please support this channel again, tonetalks.net, or you can use my Patreon or whatever. Thank you so much for the support. So let's go through this article. I shared it yesterday, last time, but I didn't read it. Now I like him. Some black voters in Georgia see Trump as a real option. The pews were filling up inside Mount Zion Baptist Church, where former President Bill Clinton was set to launch his rural campaign swing for Vice President Kamala Harris in this Democratic stronghold bordering a sea of rural red Georgia. In the back, Joseph Parker said he was thrilled that Arkansas was coming, but it had been nearly a quarter century since Clinton left office, and Parker said things were really different then. I don't understand what people are saying. Clinton pulled the party center right. Like that was the answer after Mondale. That was the answer to get the White House back from Reagan and Bush. So I don't know if people even know what they're talking about. He took a picture in front of Stone Mountain to say I can go further right than Bush, who won in '88. George Bush Sr. And you talking about things were really different then. This year, he said he's voting for former President Donald Trump. The first time the 72-year-old has cast a ballot for a Republican presidential candidate. Trump's a man of his word. Trump is a lot of things, but one thing to me, he ain't is a man of his word. So you got a 72-year-old black man. We ain't qualified him and asked, what political expertise do you have? And I'm not even just dealing with higher education. Did you join a union? Did you march with King? We just gonna say, cause you 72, you know something. Talk about it. What he don't know is how to put logic lines together, because that's one thing that you can't say about Trump. Trump's a man of his word. What he says he's gonna do, he does. Parker said after initial reluctance to reveal his preference, well, he said he was gonna build a border wall. He ain't build no border wall. What he said he was gonna build a border wall. That's what he said for y'all. For y'all people that wanted just a straight wall. I go to Mexico and I'm gonna tell you, I stood there where the wall's supposed to be. First of all, ain't no wall. Second of all, a wall don't solve this. You gotta come on. Let's put that to the side. After initial reluctance to reveal his preference, and everything is so high now. Groceries are high, clothes, everything gas. And 4 years ago, it wasn't that high. And so people see the difference in Kamala Harris and Trump, and they want some of what they had 4 years ago. So what will happen if Trump gets in office and the stuff stay high? I want to know from your 72-year-old, what you gonna do for your grandkid? You gonna come out your pocket with the money you're supposed to have to living through such a great time and fill the gap in? Because I know there ain't gonna be no government because he's gonna cut all the government services. Can I talk? Can I get to it? In the final weeks of the campaign, Democrats are working to shore up the coalition that helped turn Georgia in their favor in the presidential election 4 years ago. 4 years ago, we were in a never Trump space. We had Abrams, who had just lost, and she had that galvanizing effort. The energy on never Trump just isn't there. I think that, and then you have a candidate who has no true policy positions that galvanize people in terms of Kamala Harris. You gave us an empty candidate, tried to repeat the energy of never Trump when it's really not going to drive things. And it actually made people more mad, I believe. And you forgot black folk again. So we told you as ADOS, you better remember us. And I'm not talking about black folk in terms of mass. I'm talking about ADOS, American descendants of slavery. You gave us the first black president was not American descendant of slavery. He is half Kenyan and half white. There's only 100,000 Kenyans in America, and they largely came after 1990. So a man that has 100,000 people here became president off of the looking similar to ADOS people. You got Kamala, who's half Jamaican and half Indian, but anchored almost entirely in being Indian. We don't even see the daddy. We don't see no Jamaicans running around supporting Kamala. You got Corinne Jean-Pierre, the first press secretary, Haitian, not ADOS. How are all these people? You got the first black attorney general, Eric Holder, not ADOS. Do you not understand that this can't happen on accident? Because they don't have enough people. They don't have enough people. I don't know what you're doing in these homes, but what you are doing, telling me, is that you building these men. And I know you can't eat, survive, live off of these men. I'm just telling you how it is. You can figure out what you want. You and your little kid in there playing video games together. They 23 with no direction. Overwhelming the audience at Mount Zion on Sunday was behind the goal of pushing Harris to the Oval Office, cheering at times as Clinton spoke. The church's pastor, the Reverend Daniel Simmons, even instructed those who came forward for the altar to listen to Clinton's speech before going into another room to receive spiritual counseling. But it isn't just in rural Georgia that Harris has work to do. Back in cities, too, Democrats are trying to build support among voters of color as a small faction of them shift toward Trump. Well, if it's 20, 15, 17 points, that's not a small faction. 1-2 points is a small faction. That Pew study did not show that. As part of what it describes as its largest operation in Georgia yet, the campaign has been hosting events like Brothers and Brews in Atlanta last week while gathering black farmers. I don't want to hear nothing about these 10 and 20 person meetings. Just after taking over the ticket, Harris had a large rally in Atlanta with prominent black entertainers. And we're going to bring Meg Thee Stallion and have her twerk and Quavo. You deserve everything coming to you, Kamala. But for all the support Harris has in the state, Trump is still cutting into her margins, even with some voters who expressed reservations about him. Arthur Buford, a 28-year-old from Marietta, said he decided to vote for the first time this election for Trump, despite his family members still being Democrat all the way. I want to know about him. I want to know, do you food stamps? Do you have medical assistance from the government? Does your grandma need assistance? I want to know about your kids. Are they in public school? Or you got them all in private school? It don't matter. You got money. Or if you have kids. I want to know all about everything. Your student loans. I want to know the makeup of your life. Because maybe you're an independent $10 million man. Kamala Harris and Donald Trump remain locked in a tight contest with 47% of likely voters supporting each candidate. I need to talk today. We're going through it. I'm just looking again. We showed it earlier, but again, this is where it might land. A landslide. And the problem for ADOS, I think, is going to be they're going to hang it on us. First, they're going to try to say it was black men. They're going to ignore the black female numbers that are going to be abhorrent. I believe they might dip below 90 for the first time for a Democratic candidate in decades. Definitely over our lifetime. And then they won't even want to talk about that. But in addition, you're going to see them say, should we ignore ADOS? Because they don't know who they are politically. Huh? We going to see. Meaning, if y'all can't support this candidate and we chose this candidate because he looked like you, then maybe we should ignore you. Well, that ain't the answer. And part of the problem is you didn't take ownership of your own party. What do I mean? You, instead of pulling into your party that you built for decades, your family built, the legacy your family built inside it, you said, I'm going to do this instead. I'm going to do this mess. And the answer might be, well, go be with them. And when they say that to you, do you have the wealth, means, resources, support, community to answer back? And I would argue largely don't. Outside of the ADOS Foundation, ain't nobody doing no real conferences. Al Sharpton got a bunch of P.O. boxes. You look at the Georgia numbers. Somebody talked about Georgia earlier, right? Georgia's going to go Kamala. Well, this is the Georgia numbers, the AJC poll. If the election for president were being held today and the candidates were Republican Donald Trump, Democrat Kamala Harris, Libertarian Chase Oliver, and Green Jill Stein, for whom would you vote? 47% for Trump, 43% for Kamala, 8% undecided, and 1% another candidate. This is the final Georgia poll by AJ. That 4 points is a huge difference before the election for him. Somebody said this will happen to them on Twitter. I was out last night with friends and people I know. One of the people, a woman in the group, offered to pay for my drinks and food if I voted for Kamala. It was wild and she was serious. I think her supporters smell possible defeat. Midwest Man 1911 ADOS 310-388-3499. I want to hear from you. Hopefully you're gonna let her buy your stuff, because whatever you do in the voting booth is your own business. Then as the answer, they're gonna bring this old white man out. That's what he is now. He's an old white man. Ain't nothing wrong with getting older, but I don't know what he represents other than being an old white man. They throwing it all at the wall. They brought Eminem out. Eminem. He had a, hey, what you doing? Back in 1999, it's 2024. They got Obama rapping with Eminem like it's 07. When Obama was coming about, before 08, nearly 20 years ago, as a way to reconnect to Black Americans. So they had Obama come out and he rapped to this, Lose Yourself. I think that song 12 years old, something like that. Eminem tells campaign rally, Harris will protect freedom of speech. Barack Obama raps to Lose Yourself. But there's a problem though. This white man right here, Eminem, he was close with Trump. He did some stuff with Trump back in 04. What did he do with Trump, Tom? What did he do? They got this picture here, rare picture of Eminem with Trump. Why is Eminem here talking to me on this TV about liberal politics? Then you got Obama rapping. This be the double dipping nonsense. Eminem had Trump endorse him in 04 at a New York City launch party for Slim Shady's satellite radio station, Shade 45 in 04. Trump took the stage to raucous applause from the crowd at the Shady National Convention in a case of life imitating art. I'm Donald Trump. I'm always right, he told the gathering of fans. I know a winner when I see one, and Donald Trump is telling you right now that Slim Shady is a winner. He got brains, he got guts. So now the man who helped anchor, along with a lot of other celebrities, particularly hip-hop celebrities, Donald Trump's space in the minds of so many ADOS Black folks, let alone other urban culture-oriented Black folks, is going to now tell us we need to vote for Kamala when he old. All right. Okay. So he with Trump in 04 when it's good for him. But now he telling us that we don't need to support Trump. Donald Trump endorses Eminem for president in 04. Eminem tells campaign rally, Kamala will protect freedom of speech. Barack Obama raps to Lose Yourself. Eminem made brief remarks at Kamala Harris rally in Detroit on Tuesday evening, talking about the fear of retribution people have expressed in their opinions and his belief that Harris would protect freedom of speech as president. On stage to introduce former President Barack Obama, Eminem told the crowd that he was at the event for a couple of important reasons. As you may know, the city of Detroit and the home of Michigan mean a lot to me, he said, and I'm going into this election. The spotlight is on us more than ever, and I think it's important for you to use your voice. So I don't want to hear from this man, this low-educated old white man that rap real nasty lyrics, crazy lyrics. I'm gonna set you up. I'm gonna cut you up. I'm gonna put you in the fryer. Why do I want to hear about? Oh my God. Yeah, that's it. Instead of real policy, just bring out an old Obama rapping with this old white man, Eminem, that was popular about 20 years ago in 2000. Might as well have pushed back the time and brought out old Hove and Ye too from 2010. Just bring them all out. All y'all do your greatest hits, and then Kamala gonna come out with them boots on and that brown jacket. 310-388-3499. They paying people. They said they paid Lizzo millions. I don't know if it's verified, but they paid her millions. Lizzo. So she out here and on a jet. And she support Kamala. Lizzo slammed for taking private jet to Democratic event where she said the U.S. will look like Detroit if Kamala wins. She's so stupid. She don't know that's not a good statement. Nobody want to live in no shit that look like that. Don't nobody. How you gonna tell somebody from Los Angeles that you gonna look outside, gonna look like Detroit after Kamala win? God, how are you that? Others wrote Lizzo floating around in her carbon guzzling private jet while they are telling you dumb peasants you're killing the planet by eating a steak and driving a gas car. And like dizzy Lizzo gonna help her get votes as she stepped off of her private jet. Girl, go home. Detroit doesn't need to be lectured by some elite millionaire that doesn't have an effing clue. Most Americans can't afford to get groceries, Lizzo, but go ahead and board your private jet. Come on, man. What is we talking about? What are we talking about? Lizzo's comment on Kamala Harris' presidency draws heavy backlash on social media. Here's what she said. As Detroit is eventually facing significant economic challenges for a pretty long time, Lizzo's statement has drawn backlash specifically after former U.S. President Trump warning that a Kamala Harris administration would lead to a national decline just similar to Detroit's struggles. Lizzo has sparked a recent controversy after she made some comments about U.S. Vice President Kamala Harris while she was present during a campaign event in Detroit. According to Blast, Lizzo, while showing her support for Kamala Harris, claimed that if Kamala Harris becomes the upcoming U.S. president, the U.S. would resemble her hometown of Detroit. Detroit's estimated long-term debt was more than $14 billion and could be between $18 and $20 billion, far exceeding the $4 billion debt of Jefferson County, Alabama, that had been the largest American municipal bankruptcy filing to date. All right, so they're going bankrupt, and we gonna say y'all can be like them. Again, we're looking at this thing, and they're telling us that the election is tight, but none of us feel that way. When we look around at our mothers, at our brothers, there's no energy. I remember 2008, because I was telling people in 2008, I don't believe that Obama's going to do anything that you believe he's going to do. I have no idea what you're talking about. Before we created the language of ADOS, I was already telling people in barbershops, he's not ADOS. He's not us. He's not African American. He's not Black American. And it fell on deaf ears. Well, the difference now is not only has Obama happened, but a whole critical analysis of just the basics of reparations has made you understand what's the point of talking about this if I ain't going to say who I am. Talk about it. So now you got a lady who's Indian Jamaican that don't even talk about being Jamaican. But in addition, what that matters, she's not ADOS. So now she has actually led to a downtick in ADOS support. She has pushed us away from the polls. So her being present has pushed us away from the polls. Why is she here? She don't know what she's talking about. She don't be knowing subjects. All she do is get up there and flutter, giggle and laugh. I don't know who supported her, who created her. I don't even know where this lady came from. All I know is she told us that her main thing is that she prosecute transnational companies when it comes to immigration. That ain't it. That ain't creating immigration policy in California. You were too busy doing truancy laws that affected black mothers like Sheree Peoples. Talk about it. When you do your inauguration speech for Attorney General, you're not talking about locking up cartel leaders. You're talking about locking up black mothers, Kamala Harris. So I don't know what you're talking about with transnational. You can go listen to the speech. That part. Somebody said they might have done better leaving by then. Not might have. Unequivocally better. And I think that they're giving us these numbers. And if these numbers don't hold, many of you should go back to these polls and demand that either that people be fired, that the poll be evaluated, because a lot of times you need these polls to tell you the direction you need to go in to support and push certain policies. Well, if the polls can't get it right, we don't need you to talk next election. If you off by a lot, that means that you don't know how to do your job. I believe in the end that it might look like this. And that means that there was a landslide. And I hope that the consequence of that landslide isn't your family being eaten whole. Your family being run over by not having policies because you supported this man and you didn't ask, why am I supporting this man other than just generic immigration and him not being a hurt? What is going to be the effect on my life? What were his policies last term that affected my life? Everybody's talking about what their life looked like 4 years ago. What your life looked like 8 years ago. Huh. I just want to talk. What happens in America? Hold on. What happens in America when you have to choose between a crazy man and an unqualified woman? Have they taken your vote? I would say you got to use your vote more dynamically. We need to ask for third parties. A lot of more of us, I tried to ignite y'all as soon as they chose her, because we should have came out in mass and said she isn't a valid candidate. We want an open primary. We demanded an open primary so we can choose our candidate. We did not do that. A lot of us are now saying that Trump is an alternative and making him into a third party. He isn't. He is a Republican, a right-wing, small government Republican that services rich people. You can't make him into nothing else, and you can't make her into nothing else. Now what you got to ask, what I'm going to make for my family if both those are my choices? How am I going to look at these other options, Cornell, Jill Stein? How am I going to go back to the Democratic Party and create enough leverage where I make them listen to me and make them give me the liberal candidate they owe me, that they owe my family, that they owe my dead grandmama, that they owe my children that aren't born, that they owe everybody that we need? Can we talk? I just wanted to come to you today because we got an election coming up, and I think it's not going to look too pretty for the Democrats. And I hope that the consequence of that doesn't bear down on Adolph's families, Black American families, like something we've never seen before. We out.